welcome to Sarah's Stampin' Retreat. Today I'm going to be taking Kendra's card challenge number 12 and using that to make 15 cards. So this is a really nice way to bulk make a bunch of Christmas cards. It's really nice to do these kind of card challenges because you get all the measurements to cut up your paper with very little waste. So you can see here we've got the measurements for cutting up 6 pieces of 6x6 paper, and then you've also got all of the layering guides to actually make the cards themselves. So you could obviously do this with any of your patterns papers. It's designed for 6x6 papers, but I want to create some Christmas cards, and I've got this lovely Paper Addicts Festive Luxe paper, which I chose as part of my design team pack for my DRK Crafts design team work. So I think it's really pretty. I'm going to quickly show you through the pack, but I'm going to make sure that when I'm cutting them up, I'm going to use some of these kinds of papers, the ones that are kind of really almost like simple and abstract, because they might need to go any way, and not papers like this that you've got a certain way that they need to go. You can see these are really cute. They've got different things on the back. In fact, I'm going to turn this round so that you can see the back as well. So this checker design would be really nice, and it's got these lovely baubles on the back, but I can use these baubles for the focus elements of my cards rather than kind of the pieces that I'm going to cut up. And then we've got this here with the snowflakes on the back. I think the snowflakes are a good one that you could cut up because they could go any way. We've got these zigzags with the birds on the top. So for example, I wouldn't use the birds to chop up. I'd use those to cut out and add as elements on my cards. We've got stripes with the presents on the back. And we've got these. This is a really cute paper that I'll definitely use on a different card. But again, I won't be cutting that up for this card because that's not kind of going to go anyway. And then we've got some really nice papers like this that are really good kind of background pieces. And then we've got these sentiments that I'll cut out as focal points. And again, we've got more sentiments here. These stars will be really good for focal elements. So you can see it's a really nice pack with plenty of choice for both the cut apart pieces and the background pieces. So I'm just going to go through and just decide which 6 I'm going to use for my cut apart pieces. So the other good thing about using this paper pack is that it's got quite a generic colour scheme going through it. It's kind of all golds, blacks, greys, whites. So whichever ones are paired together, they're going to look nice together. So I'm actually going to use this piece twice because I want to use this side and this side. So I'm cutting 6-inch squares off each of the pieces that I'm going to use for this, because obviously the measurements are based on 6-inch square card pack. But for this one I'm going to cut off 2 6-inch squares, because then I can use this side and this side. You can see I've got a nice bit of variety between the darks and the lights. So I've ordered my papers, and really I've just put them in kind of whatever order. I've actually just alternated them, like black and then a light, black and then a light. But I've no idea whether that's going to make any difference because I'm going to kind of blindly cut them on here. So I won't really know until I start putting the cards together what the card's going to look like. But that's part of the fun, I think. So I'm going to show you how I cut these up. So this is the first sheet. We're going to do this one. And the first thing I like to look at when I'm starting to cut something up is which lines go straight from side to side, because that's the easiest thing to do. So I'm going to do this one up the middle first. So I know that that needs to be at 3 inches. So then we've got our 2 halves. So then I want the ones that go straight from side to side here. So I'm going to make this one this panel. So I'm going to cut that at 3.5 inches. So that's this piece. Then this piece I'm going to cut 1/4 inch off. That's going to be this 1/4 inch here. So that's that piece. And then I'm going to mark this at 3/4 of an inch. And so then this piece needs to go from this 3/4 of an inch mark to this corner. Then those pieces. So I know that this might seem a little bit complicated, but I think if you follow along with the video and you print these out, then you won't have any problems. So then these pieces are easy, they're just 3 inches each, so I can just chop this one off at 3 inches. So then I'm going to keep all these pieces in a pile together so that I can see exactly which pieces they are. So then let's move on to the next one, which is this one. So for this one, the piece that goes from side to side is this one here. And you can see she's actually put a scissors mark there, which must mean that that's the one you cut first. So that's a 1/2 inch piece. So I always find it easier to move this by 1/2 inch like that, so that I know that it's 1/2 inch rather than trying to struggle with cutting tiny pieces. So then I need to cut this at 4¼ inches. Can you see it's 4¼ there? So I'm getting all of my measurements off of here. And then this piece I need to cut into 2¼ inch strips. So I'm actually just eyeballing that. So now that we've got this, then we can do this piece because that goes straight up here because we've already cut this piece off the bottom. So then we know that this is 3 inches across, so we want to cut this into 2 3-inch pieces. So I'm going to make this on this side. So that's going to be this piece here. So I need to cut that at 3 inches. So that's that piece. So then I'm left with this. So this goes from top to bottom. I know I need to cut a 1/2 inch piece off the side of there. So this is this piece, which I can set aside to cut a circle out of. So these two I need to die cut circles out of. Then what I'm going to do with this piece is that I'm going to cut down here. So that's at 1½ inches. So this piece is a whole piece, so that can go to one side. Then we've got a 1½ inch piece, which is this piece here. We've got a 2 3/4 inch piece. And then this is the 1¼ inch piece. So you can see I need to cut a little flag into that. So then I've got a 2½ inch circle die here. So you can see I need to cut a 2½ inch circle out of there. And I also need to cut half of a 2½ inch circle out of here. So then I've got this piece and this piece, which are these two pieces here. And then this piece is this circle, so I need to cut that in half. And then out of this half, I need to cut half a 1 3/4 inch circle. So then that is that piece there. Then let's put that one aside. So then we're going to do this one next. So you can see this one, we can go top to bottom here. So that is at 1 inch off that side. And then with this piece, I need to cut off 2 3/4 inch pieces off the end. And then with all three of those, I need to cut a little flag out the bottom. Then to do these swallowtails, I like to cut at the middle and then cut into the middle. And I think that is how you create the nicest look to the swallowtails. So that's these 3 pieces here. So then the next one to do is this one, because then again we're going straight across. So I need to cut that at 1 1/4 inches off the end. So you're always looking for the easy cuts. So that's that piece. Then we've got this piece left, so this is the next one that goes all the way along. So that is at 2½ inches. So one of those is that piece, and the other one I'm going to cut at 2 1/4 inches. So that's this piece here, 2½ by 2 1/4. Then I'm going to grab this 2½ inch circle die and I'm going to cut that from here. So then there's that one. So there's all the pieces for our next cut. So then moving on to this one, you can see this one's dead simple. So the first one we're going to do is across the bottom here at 1/2 inch. So that's that piece. Then we're going to cut up here. So that is at 2 1/4 inches. You can see all the measurements are on here. Then that piece is this piece here. And then we're going to cut this at 2 1/2. So then we'll get 1 2 1/2 and 1 3 inch piece. So then we've got this piece and this piece. So that one's a dead easy one. The only thing I've now got to do is just cut a small tail into here. So there's only 4 pieces for that one. And then you can see number 5 and number 6 are again really easy ones. So let's start with this one. So for this one, we've got this 3/4 of an inch piece at the bottom. So that's this piece. Then we're going to cut this here. So that's 1 inch wide. And then this piece here is 1 1/4 inches wide. And then this leaves us with that 5 by 4 inch piece. And then it's just this piece here that needs the tail in it. So that's that, just 4 pieces. And then this final one is again not many pieces. So I'm going to cut this piece here first, which is at 2 inches. And sometimes you can see, like, you can see I'm cutting this at 4 inches, but it's because I'm cutting the 2 inch piece off. So I've gone 6 to 4 is my 2 inch piece. So I'm cutting the 2 inch piece off rather than measuring 2 inches. So I hope that makes sense. Then I need a 3/4 inch piece off the edge of there. And again, particularly on this trimmer, it's easier for me to take off 3/4 of an inch. So just go like there and cut the piece off the end, because the smallest measurement on here at the end is 1 inch. I do have another trimmer, but it's just not as easy to use, that does 3/4 of an inch, but I always think it's easier to cut off the smaller bit. So this needs to be cut in half at 1 inch. So those are those 2 small pieces. And then this is this piece. And then this side, I just need to cut 3/4 of an inch off the end. So again, I'm going down to 5 1/4 inches so I can cut the 3/4 inch piece off. And then I need to cut small flags out of these. So you can see that the only waste from these pieces is the tiny bits that we're cutting off from the flags, and little bits that kind of like outside the circles, like really minimal waste. So we're going to use pretty much the whole of these pieces of paper. So it's a really good way to make the most of your paper. So I've cut a load of Maxon layering off screen to fit in with these card sketches. I have used an embossing folder for this card. That's not absolutely necessary. The only other things that I've added to the paper pack are this glitter cardstock, which is DRK Crafts glitter cardstock, some black cardstock and some white cardstock, and then I'll probably add a few gems as we go through as well. So I'm just going to follow through and make up my cards according to what they've got on here. So for example, this one, I know it's too small for you to see on screen, but you've got the card base, then you've got a 4 1/4 by 4 inch embossed, stenciled or printed panel. So that's this, and I've done that with the tufted embossing folder from Spellbinders. It's really lovely. You can see how much depth you get on that. So then we've got a 4 by 2 3/4 inch mat. So I've made that out of my gold glitter cardstock. We've got these pieces that we cut from paper A. We've got this piece, which is from paper B. And then we've got this Warm Wishes, which I've die cut from the pack and layered up with some gold glitter cardstock. So it just says 1 3/4 inch circle with a 2 inch layer. So now we can just glue those together in the same way as it shows you on the card sketch. So obviously we've got 15 cards to get through, and most of it is just gluing in the way that it says to on the sketches. So I'm going to fast forward through a lot of it. I'll just give some tips and tricks and measurements when I feel like I need to. So for example here, this paper B is like that, so it's going to stick out over here if I don't chop this off. So the best way to get the right angle for this is to line it up along this side so that we know that it's lying at the right angle. And then I can just cut that piece off there so that it's straight at the top, and then that will lie there. So then normally when I'm adding papers onto cardstock, I want a nice thin layer of glue, but I will put a little bit extra on these pieces where they're going onto the glitter cardstock, because you really want it to grab that glitter. then I can add this to my card front. And then I'm going to add some foam pads behind this. So then I've got these Spellbinders Fashion Gold gems, and I'm just going to add them here. So that's that first card finished. It's really nice and sparkly. So then let's move on to the second card. So for this one, we've got card bank, then we've got a black panel 1/4 of an inch smaller. We've got these two pieces that are from paper A and paper B. Those are 3-inch squares, and they've got 3 1/4 inch square mats, which are from the glitter cardstock. I've cut this from the pack to be my sentiment. And then this is any shape, image or die cut, and it says this rectangle measures 3/4 of an inch by 1 1/4 inches. So what I've done is I've cut that size from the glitter card, and then I've also cut out these presents that I'm just going to lay on top of that. So you probably won't see much of the card, I just want it poking out the bottom, but that's going to be like the placeholder for that. So let's start putting that together. And you'll notice as well that this piece from the paper pack B is the piece we cut that half a circle out of, so that's the one that goes behind. So that half circle cut out is hidden. So I'm going to add my sentiment on foam pads on this one. And I love it when paper pads have really usable sentiments in them, because it means that you've got sentiments that match your papers, and also that you don't have to go digging through your stamps or whatever else to embellish your projects. And it's really great for beginner card makers that don't have a huge stash as well. And then I'm going to add foam pads on the back of here. And then I'll glue these on. And then I'm just going to finish that off by putting some of these small gems in the centre of the bow. And for me, little finishes like that can really kind of like make a card. You just add that little bit of a lift. So that's that card done. Then for this next card, I've got my card blank. I've used black for this 5 by 3 3/4 layer, glitter for the 4 3/4 by 3.5 inch layer. So then I've used black for this 5 by 1/2 inch strip, and glitter gold for this 5 by 1/4 inch strip. Then these orange half circles are cut from the paper pack as we went through. Then I've used white, gold and black for these other half circles, and all of the measurements for those half circles are on the sheet. So the first thing I'm going to do is layer up these half circles. So you can see these ones need to get layered up towards this side. And then these line up towards the other side. So then let's start layering up the card. And I'm just going to check where I want these to go so they line up nicely before I glue them down. So then for this one, I've cut a Warm Wishes out of here, and that's a really nice way to use these ones at the bottom that are kind of like partial wreaths as such. So I've just cut this middle bit out, which is just the Warm Wishes, and then I'm going to pop that onto this circle, which is a 1 3/4 inch circle of the glitter. And then I wanted something a bit more to go on here, so I've cut out this little bird as well. I think he looks quite cute. So I'm going to pop that up as well. And then where they've got 3 dots here, I'm going to move those down to here. I'm going to use these black smooth discs from the Colour Essential Sequins from Spellbinders. And actually, while I'm doing this, I'll just show you with my sequins and gems that come in packaging like this, because once you've taken off the packaging, you don't really know what they are. Obviously you can see, but you don't know who they're from or anything like that. And I like to know that in case I need to tell you guys, in case I run out and I want to buy some more. So I like to just cut that bit of packaging off, tape it to there, and then I know exactly what they are. So I'll use some of these bigger ones. You get a few different sizes in these packs. I actually really like that because it means that you've got something for a bunch of different projects, where if you've only got one size, it might be too big or too small for the project that you're doing. Then that's that 3rd card finished. So then for this 4th card, you've got your card blank, you've got this piece of paper that's from paper B, and then I've done the mats on this card with the gold. I've got this 3-inch square from paper A with the gold 3¼ inch square around it. And then I decided on this one not to do this layer. I'm just going to put on this large present instead, and I've cut my sentiment from the pack. So let's layer that up. As I've said before, I'm going much heavier on the glue than I usually would, just so that it sticks to that glitter cardstock. And if you're going to go heavier on the glue, you do need, this is a bit of a heavier weight paper, it's not a flimsy paper. Don't use your thin papers for this kind of thing, because once you put that much glue on it, it's all going to just look terrible. It's going to go all wrinkly. So then I'm going to pop my sentiment and my present up on foam pads. So then I'm going to come in with my gold gems, 1 on here and 3 down here. So then there's that card done. So then we're going to move on to this one. I've got my card blank, I've got a 4x5¼ panel in white cardstock. Then this 3¼ by 4½ inch layer I've got in black cardstock. Then these are the pieces that I've cut out of the paper before. Then I've got these 2, which are a 1½ inch square and a 1½ by 2¾ inch rectangle from the gold. This 3¼ by ½ inch strip I've done out of black, and then I've forgone this circle and the layer for this Happy Christmas that I've cut out of the pack. So let's layer that all up. One of these gold gems each side. You can see my proportions are slightly different. I've used a bigger centerpiece than they have, but the idea of it is still the same, and I really like how it's turned out. Okay, so now we're on to this one here. So I've got my card blank, I've got my paper from paper pack A with a 3¾ by 3¼ inch mat in the gold. Then I've got this paper C, and that's got a 2¾ by 2½ inch mat on it. Then I've got my sentiment, and I've got another layer. My sentiment and my layer aren't the same size as those because I wanted to use this sentiment from the pack, and also they go the opposite way because that's how the sentiments in the pack went. And that's another way that's good to save papers, is here where I've got sentiments that kind of come off the side, they don't have this bit here, I've cut them down here and just used them as a label like that. So then we can go ahead and layer those up. And I have been using this side of this paper, but I think I like this side for this one. And that's the beauty of using the double-sided papers, is that if you prefer the other side for a specific card, you can just turn it over and use that. And I think I might turn this one over as well. I had intended to use that side, but I think I want to use this side for this card. And I really enjoy doing this kind of thing where you're using like the sketches to make your cards. I think they're great for beginner card makers because it's literally telling you what to do, what size everything's going to be, all that kind of thing. It's also great for those of us who've been card making for years, because sometimes I think most people just always kind of want a bit of downtime. Like you want to make a card, but you don't necessarily want to think too much about it. Like, it's really lovely for when you're in that kind of mood. So I'm just going to pop this sentiment up on some foam pads. And obviously my panels haven't taken up as much room as this. And actually initially I was only going to add on the one bird, but I think I might cut out another, because I think especially with that Christmas love sentiment, it'd be quite cute to have the two birds. And I'm doing one of the white ones and one of the grey ones, because that way there's one facing each way. You don't want really to say Christmas love and then they're not looking at each other, so so now I'll have the two of those like that, and I'll pop them up on foam pads as well. And then there are these three gems. Then I think that looks cute. So that's our first 6 done, so we're going to move on to the next page of sketches. And you can see that this next one uses up all those different little strips that we've cut from different pieces of cardstock. So I've got a 5.5 by 4.25 inch piece of the gold cardstock, and I'm going to glue all these strips across there. And it tells you exactly what order they need to go in so that they all fit, because obviously there's some smaller pieces and some larger pieces. And again, you can look at both sides of the paper to see which side you want to use. So because I've put quite a lot of glue on so that it sticks to the glitter, I'm going to just leave that to dry a second before I trim off the excess. And while I'm doing that, I can just add this piece. So that's a 4 by 2 inch piece of black cardstock, and I'm going to glue on these baubles that I've cut from the pack. That's our piece to go on the top. Now I'm going to trim this off. I think actually at the same time I'm going to trim it down, because I think even though this doesn't have a layer, I think I'm going to trim it to 1/4 inch smaller than the card blank so that I can have like a little border of black around the outside. So now that's all trimmed down to 4 by 5.25 inches, and I'm going to add that to my card. And then I'm going to add this piece to the centre. And then I'm just going to add a little border. And then there we go, that's our next card done. That was number 7. Okay, so then for this next one, I've got my card blank. The 4 by 5.25 inch layer is from black. The 3 3/4 by 5 inch panel is in my glitter. Then we've got papers B and C. So that's actually half a circle from paper B. So you angle it so that it's covered by the other pieces. And again, I've foregone this circle for one of the sentiments from my pack. This is quite an easy one just to layer up. So then obviously you want to start with the back one. So then we're going to put that across like that. And obviously we're wanting to cover this edge of the half circle from paper B. So then we're going to put across our 4 by 1/4 inch strip of black cardstock. And then I'm going to pop some fine pads behind the sentiment. And there's that one done. So then, number 8, I've got my card blank. I've got this piece is my paper C with 1/4 inch larger piece of the gold. Then this layer I've done in gold, so that's 4 by 2 3/4. And then I've got this piece of paper B, and then I've just cut some pieces out of the pack. So I've got 3 presents and this 'Tis the Season sentiment. Then I'll be putting the 'Tis the Season there, so I want these to kind of like almost sit on top of it. I'm just going to glue these 2 dark coloured ones on. Then I've got a panel to go on there. I've just put some of these small dots in the on the bows again, because I think that does really add something. So there we go. Okay, so then for this next one, we've got this from paper B, we've got this from paper D, then I've got this 4 by 5 1/4 inch layer of the glitter cardstock, and then for this piece I've got a 4 by 1/2 inch piece of the black, a 4 by 1/4 inch piece of the gold, and here I've got the 3 1/2 by 1 1/2 inch layer is the black, 3 1/4 by 1 1/4 inch layer is the gold. I can just go ahead and layer those up. I've seen this curling up a little bit, so I add an acrylic block over there, just hold that down while it dries, and then I'm going to make this piece to go on top of it. So I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together, and you can see even just that small amount of time under the acrylic block has flattened that out and helped it stick down. So I'm going to add this to paper, and then I'm going to add my festive wishes in the bird that I've cut out of the paper pack. I'm going to pop the bird up on some foam pads. So then I'm just going to add some of these just here. So then that's that one finished. Okay, so this next card uses quite a lot of bits that we cut out of the paper pack. So you've got these little flag ends and this main paper here, and then I've cut out this 1/2 inch strip by 4 1/4 inch strip from gold cardstock, then this 4 1/4 by 3 inch piece I've cut out of white, 3 3/4 by 2 inch layer I've cut out gold, and this 3 1/4 by 1 1/2 inch layer I've cut out of white. So let's layer that up. this side on these again instead of this side. I think that paper looks really nice on just the small flags. So then I'm going to pop the sentiment, and you can see again I've just cut that out of the middle of one of those pieces on the paper like I showed you earlier, and the bauble that I've cut out are from foam pets. And then let's just embellish with some of these golds. So then that's that one done. Then here's number 12, so we're going with this one this time. So I've got a black card blank, then I've got my piece of paper, which is from paper F, to go across the middle, and then these 1/4 inch strips I have done from the gold glitter. So for these, because we're going to be cutting the ends off, I find it easier just to add a bit of glue to the cardstock, and then that can go alongside that. I had a bit of a glue explosion on that, so I used a bit more than I needed to. So I'm just going to leave that to dry a second while I just add some foam pads to the back of here. So then obviously this says any 1 3/4 to 2 inch shape. I've gone a bit bigger than that because I want to use one of these again. So I just want to keep it all from the pack. Then before I add that on, I'm just going to cut the excess off of here. So now we're on to this final sheet. So for this first one I've got a white card blank, then I've got my paper E, paper C and paper D flags that we cut out. Then this piece I've done from black, so that's 4 1/4 by 3/4 inch. And then this layer, I decided this time to cut the biggest circle because that's 2.5 inches and put this on top, so you just get that little glint of gold from behind. So I think that adds a little bit to it. So I'm just testing which one of these I like the best on there. I think that this one stands out more, so I'm going to go with that one. So then I'm going to glue this on. And then I'm going to add that on with some foam pads. There's that card. So then this next one, I've done the same with this sentiment as I did with the last one, but I've backed it with a black circle instead. And then the mats on this are 1/8 of an inch different. So I've got my card blank in white, then I've got a black piece of cardstock that is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Then I've got this piece which is 4 by 5 1/4. Then I've got this piece here which is 1 1/4 by 5 with a piece of black that is 1 3/8 by 5 1/8. And then I've got this piece of the pattern paper that is 2.5 by 3 3/4 inches with the black layer 2 5/8 inches by 3 7/8 inches. So let's glue those all together. I actually really like using these layers that are 1/8 of an inch different rather than 1/4 of an inch different on some of my cards, because I really think it adds like an elegance to the card, just having those kind of fine layers. Then that's that one done. So then for this final card, we've got black card blank, a piece of paper from paper F. This strip of paper is from paper E. I've got this sentiment that I've taken from the pack, 2/4 inch strips of the gold, and then I've got this piece here. So this black piece is 3¼ inches by 2 inches, and this piece is 3¼ inches by 1¾ inches. So let's start layering that up. And I'm actually going to start by adding this onto here because I've cut these slightly long, so I need to chop the ends off there. I'm just going to trim off the ends, so then I can add that to my card front. So then I'm going to glue the two black presents onto here. And then I'm going to add the white present and the sentiment on with foam pads. So then that's that final card finished. So let's go through and look at all of the cards from today. So I'm going to pop them out on here so that you can see them all individually, because we're not going to have room to be able to see them all out at once. And so there they are, all of our cards. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. I'll link in the description below to Kendra's Card Challenge website, where you can download all of the printables that I've been using throughout this, like the part that shows you how to cut up the papers and the part that shows you how to put the cards together. Please do let me know if you'd like to see any more videos like this where I kind of go through and make the whole card challenge, because if you enjoyed it, then we can always try it again with a different paper pad, or she releases a new challenge every 3 months, so we could do one each time she releases a challenge. But do let me know whether that's something you'd be interested in seeing. It's a really great way to use up your paper pads without too much waste and get some really gorgeous Christmas cards at the same time. So if you did enjoy today's video, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got new videos available. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.